Have you ever asked yourself the question, what is space exploration and what's its purpose? Some questions like, why are we sending people into space? Why is my government sending this much amount of money for launching rockets? Why are we sending rockets? How is it helping me in my daily life? I'll try to answer all of these questions in this video by showing its impact on politics, on science, on economy, but also the most important, environment. This video is in collaboration with the astronomy teacher of Nottingham Trent University, Dr. Daniel Brown. So let's go! So first of all, let's try to define space exploration and see where it comes from. Space exploration started in the Cold War with one side the USA and on the other side the USSR. This conflict led into a space race where Russia sent for the very first time a human into space, also the first animal into space, and on the other hand, we have the USA sending the first humans onto the moon with the Apollo missions. Today it's quite different. We're not sending people onto the moon anymore. We first of all have the ISS, where we constantly have astronauts above our heads. We also have the new space, the birth of many private companies such as SpaceX, Blue Origin, Relativity Space, Rocket Lab, many different companies who are independent and are not relying in theory on national agencies. We're also today on a second race for the moon, this time to stay there. We have the Artemis missions with the USA and many other countries, but we also have China and Russia to create the ILRS. We also send many satellites every day for daily services such as GPS or internet connections. So now that we know what space exploration is and where it comes from, let's see how it helps scientific progress. So for this, I'm going to ask the following question to Dr. Daniel Brown. What scientific progress has been done with space exploration?
There's also the big area that we do get substantial things out of space missions. So there's a lot of space scientific technology that we've come, apart from also being able to explore certain things in space. Because we're in space, we wouldn't be able to explore them anyhow differently. Electrical drill or screwdriver, these have been developed with the space flight. If you're thinking about a certain robust materials, they have been developed through the space flight as well. Or you're lucky enough, you might have had a house fire and firefighters came and rescued you. The kind of equipment they're using, the breathing equipment and the protectiveness against the fire, a lot of that has been developed with NASA, for example, as well. So there's a amazing cross correlation in that. But that's where the bit is where many people say, well, we could do this all without human spaceflight. Yes, but no, because there's a lot of things where I say that's where not only do we have these scientific engineering, medical innovations that then come back to us, but you also have the kind of changed viewpoints, because not only do you then have this technology developed, you've got also people that are working in space, for example, nearly a year in the International Space Station, seeing Earth from that perspective. Or I would have gone now with a new mission, Artemis, around the moon, stayed there, come back. You can draw possible parallels in the early times of the environmentalism and Greenpeace, the green agenda flourishing up, and that can be linked in many parts to, for example, the first images taken of the Earth rising above the moon. Everyone you know is on that. Everyone you will know is on that. Everyone you ever could read about in history ever lived on that. So that gives you suddenly a complete different kind of view of what's going on. Also, the other part is then thinking about ethics. So how do we have to now think about using this new space? How is it about then monitoring our heritage? What do we leave behind? How do we influence these environments? All these questions bring us to a new forefront, to push into a new area, not only scientifically, but also from a thought and philosophical and ethical point of view. Now we're getting to a region which we've never encountered beforehand, and even thinking about life on other planets as well. So all of that is something where we have to look scientific discovery, which is substantial, I think, and innovation coming back, but also how the thought process, how the philosophical ideas and the moral viewpoints, how they come back to us, they are very substantial and cannot be neglected. And that's the key thing why I still find human spaceflight and humans in space is still vitally important.
Space exploration has also helped for healthcare, from derived technologies such as the survival blanket of mission Eco-1, but also the pump in artificial heart who comes from Space Shuttle. Osteoporosis treatment advanced. Due to low gravity, astronauts are facing the same problems. We also have the heart pacemaker, who directly comes from the astronauts' health centers. It also helps to make science progress on the origins of Earth. Recently, in 2021, we've sent the James Webb Telescope, helping us to understand even furthermore what's surrounding us. Space exploration also helps massively space exploration. We have new technologies who are helping us to go even further and further into space exploration, but it's also going to make us capable of going onto the Moon and Mars in a few years from now. Okay, so now let's switch to political impact. As I said, space exploration is born from a political conflict, Cold War, and they were just fighting to show off their technology superiority, and so this is how space exploration arrived. Today it is still the case. We have the alliance of many other countries working all together on the Artemis Treaty, and showing that their relationships are strong, but it also shows that there are two different groups. For example, Russia and China are not allowed to join the Artemis missions. The ISS is also a great example of the political impact of space exploration. Above being a simple laboratory into space, it is also a political tool to show alliances and relationships between countries. Its very origin is the end of the Cold War, when USA and Russia made peace and so joined their two space stations. But once again, some countries are not allowed to come, such as China, who was forced to create its own space station alone. And so this is how space exploration impacts politics. Okay, so now let's see how populations and people feel about space exploration. Many people, such as Elon Musk, talk a lot about Mars and colonizing Mars, also terraformation. And this raised many ethical questions and questions on the purposes of going there. So this is why I asked the question, should humans go on a permanent base on Mars and terraform it?
You were specifically raising Mars here. It is definitely something of the big players in space, a vision, and especially having just witnessed the second attempt, successful, I'll put it in high commas, of the Starship launch, and Elon Musk, that is very much his main goal within the lifetime to achieve this. It is something that is definitely worthwhile achieving as a base, as going there for sure, but I think we're much further away from that than we might think, or even Elon Musk might consider this. And it is definitely something worthwhile to strive to, but it's definitely not something that I would see in our lifetime actually happening, or in the very near future. We're there opening the door and then seeing all the problems. What's probably far more realistic is venturing to the moon and remaining more permanently on there. That's probably far more achievable with all its challenges, and that's the key thing, is embracing the challenges, going there and managing that to learn more as we go along. And again, it's definitely worthwhile going there. There's so much regarding how that then benefits our overall space exploration, and how it then supports the exploration of space and the universe overall. There's so many aspects in there as well that help us just at that first point before we then venture further out, and then we can explore and discuss mining on other planets, on asteroids and things like that as well. But Mars is definitely something that I think is a vision. How realistic that is and how manageable that is a complete different part, but it's definitely not as manageable as, for example, big players like Elon Musk want to make us believe. I think it's important to see also the very big challenges. A lot of things, I think, going to the moon or just being able to put up a more regular space presence up in Earth orbit is probably the first step. And if you look at things like how Elon Musk plans that's one of the steps anyway. But Then he has visions of how he wants to transport big amounts of people there, where Starship is one of them, building a larger ship that then flies out. All of that are very big, grand, near science fiction ideas that are theoretically possible, and in some places are now being tested, but we're nowhere near yet to do this.
Space exploration is in a general way quite appreciated, but many people are not agreeing with the idea of space exploration. People believe that space should be the last of our priorities, that it is not helping the environment and it's too much money spent on nothing, and this creates massive debate within our society, but it also reveals important ethical questions. Now let's have a look to economics. Okay, so as I said, economics has been the subject of many debates within space exploration. So for this, we're going to quickly have a look on statistics and try to compare it with different things. For this, I'm going to take my phone. Government expenditure on space programs worldwide in 2022 is $103 billion. In comparison, Alibaba, the website, generated as revenue $130 billion. On the other hand, we have the US, which is the biggest investor in space exploration, where federal spendings in 2021, quite close till today, is $25.2 billion. However, this represents only 0.5% of all federal spendings. In comparison, military spendings represents $101 billion for the USA. But we also have to realize that NASA, Space Agency of America, generates money for its economy, since a statistic was given that $1 spent on NASA adds more than $8 to the economy. But in Europe, we also have different actors who also help our economy. We have the ESA, the European Space Agency, which joins many other countries, but now we have to ask the question also about what UK does and how UK helps space exploration. Okay, so let's ask the question to Dr. Daniel Brown. How far do you agree with the fact that Britain is a major actor into space exploration?
I think describing the UK as a major player on the space front is probably exaggerated to some extent. The UK had a space program, the Black Arrow project, which was sort of stopped in the early 70s. At that point, things have progressed here or there, but there was no centralized agency that was supporting or coordinating that. So the UK was involved through, for example, the wider working with ESA or with NASA as well, collaborating in certain aspects and providing certain components for that. But what's changed now is that since several years we've got a main institution that's coordinating the UK Space Agency, and what we've also got is a considerable development of using micro or small satellites and exploring that industry substantially as well. We see that as well with the spaceports. So we've got 2 spaceports as a minimum already, one down south, which was in Cornwall and near Newquay, and the other one up in Oost, if I'm not mistaken, in the Shetlands as well. And they're quite interesting, again, both supplying, in a sense, the exploration of space using small satellites for sure. Unfortunately, with all these things, it's always dependent on their success. There's also big differences in how they work with vertical and horizontal launches. Now, the other bit is with all these things, they take a while to build, and the one in Shetland should have been commissioned and tested already this year. They've postponed it to next year, but there's a guaranteed first launch for that spaceport facility, which is different, which is probably from the point of view how the public would enjoy seeing this far more rewarding, because that's why I said there's a difference between vertical and horizontal takeoff. The one down in Cornwall, it was essentially a rocket strapped to a plane, so you watch the plane take off, which isn't all too inspiring if you don't look further. The one in Shetland, even though far more remote, will still be a vertical setup, so it's what we would imagine from a rocket as it was blast off as well. It is developing, it is definitely accelerating, but I wouldn't describe the UK yet as being a key major player. It is something that is very vastly and very quickly developing, especially given the kind of micro satellite and small satellite development.
And so do you think maybe later we could have a more powerful English space power?
I think what will happen is that there will be, for sure, substantial development of that industry, for sure. And I can't see that will slow down. That is something that we've seen with SpaceX and similar providers has gone. Web 1 is another one that's gone quite substantially beyond the let's test it to it is viable. And we'll see now what the market says to that. So that will definitely go ahead. Again, I think what all these industries will probably struggle with, from my personal point of view, is given the kind of goals that the space industry has to inspire. We might talk about that, things like sending people to Mars or having a moon base or something. At that point, doing this as a single country is very, very, very challenging. So it will always be a network of, and I think that is the UK is ideal for that as well, given the knowledge base and the support that we're giving, and having these small launch facilities here for sure, which is really, really helpful. So that gets us sort of in the market for sure. But I can't see the UK, for example, now contributing solely on a mission that will then fly to Mars. I don't think that's something that the space industry in the UK itself on its own would achieve, and I don't think that's the right way to go anyway.
Okay, so like all industries, a major matter is environment. The rockets emit some gas, sometimes toxic. It also emits some CO2 while the development, while the manufacturing. But above all of that, space exploration also emits loads of CO2 while people are watching the launches. Because yes, 36 grams of CO2 are emitted per hour of stream in a European house. However, space exploration has a good impact. Space exploration sends satellites all around the Earth, and these satellites often help us to have loads of data. It also helps us to be more efficient into the efforts we're putting into changing our environment. However, above all of this, we have the matter of space pollution. When we're sending those satellites, some of them stop working, and we also can find into orbit stages of different rockets. This has different problems, since sometimes it can be harder to look at the sky in the night. For example, yesterday I was looking at the sky at night, and I saw this line of white dots, and this was a constellation, the mega constellation of Starlink of Elon Musk. So telescopes had to sometimes take a break while these satellites passes over their target, but space pollution had also many different issues. For this, we're going to ask to Dr. Daniel Brown, do you believe that space pollution can be the next environmental disaster, and is it this dangerous?
It's a very good point. So there are many disasters environmentally that we're looking at. I would not necessarily say yet that space pollution is yet at that limit where it's the number one issue, but it will become and has become a substantial one as well. The more we're using that space, the more we see these issues. There's a space, an environment that in the, let's say, 40s, early 50s was just empty. There was nothing there. And as soon as we started populating that with space probes, Sputnik, used rocket stages, unused now satellites, and all of that, it becomes busier and busier. It's like a swarm of bees around us. And what is also driven is a substantial change and a need for change in the legislation. We're very, very, very young in that kind of development. So there's ideas and things that are going on, legislations that are pushing that, but we're far from being professional in that area. And a lot of that we're seeing, especially you mentioned Elon Musk's Starlink projects have many problems, and we have to, I think that's a bit where we open it up to the public sector, and there must be more legislation to make sure that these satellites are properly vetted, that there's a mechanism in place how they're then controlled, deorbitized, and there's a substantial need for that, because else we will run into problems. And if you look at day-to-day operation of the International Space Station, there are indications, there's proof of them having to lower or raise their orbit to avoid collision with space debris. So it is out there and it is causing problems, and it is only going to get worse, bearing in mind that one of the things why Elon Musk is also looking at his heavy rocket as well is that could launch substantial amount of load. At that point you're talking about, he's got already probably now 2,000-3,000, I'm not sure what the current numbers, but we're talking about tens of thousands is what he's aiming for, and that is only one of these businesses, and there are many in there. So that will only now exponentially populate that area, and we can only in our bad dreams imagine what could happen there. And this pollution is not something that would just sit there, but at some point you'll get then debris raining down, in a sense causing damage. But not only through that, but it also, if you then put something meaningful up there, they would have problems. You would have communication satellites being taken down by collisions as well. It is not yet there, but I think it's at the point where we are still able to do something. In the industry, you can see here or there smaller missions that are going out with nets and trying to capture and clear this, but we need to do more with this. and that's only around us. If you look wider, there's still a need for that. There are space agencies that work with that, and I just feel that as more as we open that up, especially I was talking about the smaller satellite missions, we open it up towards slightly irresponsible use. And if you look in the media, there are similar things. There's like using, you can order your own meteor shower, and you can book a meteor shower, and they'll send it up in space and let it rain down, and you'll see the debris glowing up in different colors. I mean, that cannot be correct. There have to be control mechanisms that stop irresponsible use of this environment, and that's a big thing. As I said, we're definitely not at a point that it is now the end of everything if we don't look after it in the next year or two, but it is a ever-growing problem that won't go away if we don't do anything, and it will only get worse if we don't legislate and, for example, put an independent organization in place that can monitor and help support that.
Okay, we've seen many things. So to conclude, we can say that space exploration has many benefits but also has some issues. Space exploration helps economy, understanding our planet and so environment. It also helps to make scientific progress, but it also has issues such as space pollution, rise of tensions between countries, and it is still true that some money spent onto space exploration could be spent into saving our planet. However, this industry is really interesting, and I recommend you to make some research to understand it. Meanwhile, I thank you for watching this video. I recommend you to like it, subscribe for others, and I'll see you next time.